I would love to just start with you sharing your story, because I know your story is so powerful. And then we can dive into all of your wisdom around healing.
For sure. And thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to connect again. And, my story, I will say, it starts at birth. It's not the typical hero's journey of like this, I was really sick and I had a miraculous thing and it led me to some huge discovery. No, it literally, I was born into a family where my father was a doctor. My mother was a psychologist. They came from Poland in the early 70s before I was born. And I was the firstborn in the United States. And I was lucky enough that my father, right around the time I was born, was getting a little bit disappointed with his conventional route of medical, his profession. And so he was an anesthesiologist. He worked at a hospital. He was doing very well for himself, but he figured there's something else out there that must be better, because I'm seeing these patients come in. I'm doing my very best with the drugs, with the surgeries, everything, and they get a little bit better, but then they come back worse. And this is the revolving door of what I'm doing, and it doesn't feel fulfilling to me. And he said, there's got to be something better out there. This isn't what I got into medicine for. So he began to travel, and he began to look elsewhere, because he went to all of the different conferences in the US that were, board certified ones and everything. And he was at the top of his basically profession at that point. He was doing things that other people weren't doing, and he still didn't get the results he wanted. So when he started to travel, I got to come along with him. And I got to meet a lot of different experts, doctors in so many various fields from around the world. And as a little kid, you don't quite understand how lucky you are to travel to, the Great Wall of China and to meet all these wonderful people there, and, go to Europe throughout there and meet people in biological medicine, and go to Oxford University and be meeting all these professors and, consciousness and all these different things. And you just think it's part of it. And you're the little kid playing around as the, grown-ups talk about big things. And, and I did that throughout my childhood. I probably saw, 20, 30 different countries before I was a teenager, and was around all of that growing up. My father started to always build a larger toolkit, because he had conventional medicine, he had surgery, he had drugs, he understood that, but he kept adding to it: traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, homeopathy, even things like shamanism. We went to Peru and met with shamans while there. So, and he would be a skeptic at first. He was a conventionally trained doctor, so he would come back. And a lot of the times, rather than just start on patients, he would want a guinea pig. And I was a very good guinea pig. So, I still remember coming back from that trip to China when I was probably like 12 or maybe a teenager at that point. But, I started to have needles placed into me, which I didn't know what was going on. I was like, this doesn't feel very nice. And, it's fine now that you look back and you can say, all right, it's painless. But as a kid, when you start to see a needle come out and put in certain spots, you start to cry like a little girl. And so, moxibustion and O-ring testing, you could go on from what was learned on that one trip to China and how many different experts he met in a few weeks there. And he started to try it out. And of course, he moved on to his patients and tried it there. And he wanted to see the results. He was a skeptical mind, which I think is beautiful in medicine. I'm not against that, because so many people say you shouldn't be a skeptic. I think you should. But I think you should be your own skeptic and look for experience over evidence. And that's where he started to experience better results, not just for pain, which was his kind of specialty, but across the board for chronic conditions, for all these. And as the toolkit became bigger and bigger, he became better equipped to address different types of chronic conditions. And so he stepped away from the conventional paradigm after the toolkit was already there. And he said, I can't apply this in the hospital. I need to open up a private practice. His colleagues at the time thought he was crazy because, you just didn't do that. This was maybe early 90s or so when he started the private practice. He was still juggling both, kind of in two worlds, as he said. You go in a little bit to the hospital, then go to his private practice and use more lasers instead of, drugs and pulse electromagnetic field therapy, all these different things and he started to go more and more. And so I witnessed all of that growing up. This is what I thought medicine was. I thought medicine was that you applied hundreds of different therapies and helped heal the body, not just manage the disease and gives, a pill that you need every single day, but actually get you to a state of self-optimization. That's what I thought medicine was. I was shocked when I learned that wasn't the case. As I got older, went to college, and people asked what my dad did. Oh, he's in medicine. Oh, what kind of, like, I'm like, oh, he does all sorts of integrative, and I had to explain. They're like, that is just weird. So it was, that whole childhood and my whole upbringing led me to see medicine in a very different way. And I had no intention of going into medicine originally. I wanted to go either become a lawyer, which I didn't want to continue doing school after university. So no to that by my junior year. But I was in business school, and I really wanted to be, in finance and work on Wall Street and all of that and be the money guy. I did that for a year. It was completely it wasn't for me. I was just, this is not my thing, and just hitting buttons and, a large number of people above you that you report to. There's no creativity for me, at least. I know lots of people still in finance, and I love them. And the opportunity came up to basically, my co-founder, Dr. Mark Ivanitsky, came to me after being treated by my father for allergies he had for several years he couldn't get better from. And came up, and he's like, hey, we got to get this out there to the world. So, like, people don't know about, I didn't know about it. It helped me. I got my parents about, like, I got, everyone, we need to get it out there. And at first I said, sure, why not? It wasn't like a passion project, but I knew it so well. So it wasn't like something like I had to learn. I knew what my father did. I'd been to all these places and was still going, even in college and everything. I'd still go along on these trips and go and meet these doctors and professors all over the world talking about this weird, crazy stuff. And so that's where the company started in the early 2000s, of this way to get the word out about what was happening in this one medical practice that my father started. And it morphed over the last 20 years into, we've been on multiple continents training different doctors, really expanded our own medical clinic, started our own product, podcast, all these things. And it's really about changing medicine. It's about, helping people to reclaim their greatest gift, which is their health. And I think too many people are relying on a medical system that isn't giving them that. And that is, in some ways, I would say, failing them for that reason. So that's my story. That's it in a nutshell. And and here we are today to discuss more of how we could help people.
That's beautiful. It's so cool to see how impactful your father was on you, and how you said, he's a skeptic, but also when you're describing him, he sounds very open-minded to me, like willing and flexible while maintaining a groundedness within it, right? Of not just getting caught up in the hype of something, but actually being very practical. But yet just this like openness to things that are known to him. And I think that's a lot of what I know I experienced in the medical, I would say like the more Western allopathic, insurance covered is usually how I describe it. Insurance covered medicine, there was a lot of closed-mindedness or fear. I think there's a lot of fear among doctors. I had some really genuine, kind-hearted doctors that honestly just would look me square in the eye and say, I can't help you and I'm so sorry. Like they just couldn't help me. They didn't know what to do with me. I didn't fit into any of their boxes, and so they, to this day, I've had contact with a few of them, and they're so interested in what I'm doing because they're like, I remember you and I couldn't help you and it was breaking my heart. So I know that there is a desire, but most doctors don't seem to be able to step out of that space. And I know it has a lot to do with risk and potentially losing their license and different things that feel really scary and big. And not everyone's meant to be innovative like your father and like you, right? Not everyone has that gifting. They're here to just share what has been passed down to them. And I understand that. But I think I agree with you that our system needs restructuring, needs massive updating, and needs openness, that your father's clearly demonstrating and you are carrying that forward.